Monster culture has a long history in both China and Japan. But why did their paths diverge so much? Chinese monsters, despite appearing in many classic cultural works, seem to have a bit less exposure than Japanese monsters. What's more interesting is that many Japanese monsters actually have their origins in China, like the Guihuo bird, the flying headman, and the nine-tailed fox. So, the question arises, why is China the wholesale factory for monsters, yet the famous brand is Japanese monsters? It may seem like a simple question, but there's a deeper story, involving cultural background, historical inheritance, social structure, religious views, and even national governance. Today, let's break down this phenomenon and see how Chinese monster culture gradually disappeared and why it didn't become as widely known as Japanese monsters. 1. The gap in monster culture. Why did the once great monster empire disappear? In ancient China, monster culture was incredibly prosperous. Whether it was the mythical beasts in Shan or the fox spirits in Liaozhai, they were deeply embedded in folk beliefs and stories. Monster culture in China once flourished, and many Japanese monsters also originated from China. For example, the nine-tailed fox first appeared in Shan, later seduced King Zhou in Fengshen Yanyi, and eventually transformed into Tamamonome in Japan. The Guhuo bird, originally a ghost recorded in the Chinese text Ben Cao Gao Mu, later became a star in Hayaki Yajio. The flying headman, initially a flying female ghost in southern Chinese folklore, was later adopted by Japan and became a regular character in horror games. However, despite China having so many original monsters, why haven't they become global blue-chip cultural icons like Japanese monsters? One of the key reasons is the gap in culture. In Japan, monster culture underwent systematic organization and became a cultural IP like Hayaki Yajio, and over time, it was widely spread. In China, most monster stories were scattered folktales, and the government never systematically organized and passed them down, causing these stories to spread across different regions, making it hard to form a complete cultural framework. What's even more severe is the suppression of feudal superstition throughout Chinese history. Many records of monsters were considered non-mainstream culture and disappeared from official discourse. In modern times, with the promotion of materialism, the cultural influence of monsters was further weakened, and eventually, they disappeared into obscurity. 2. Monsters are unappointed gods, while gods are appointed monsters. If the cultural gap is one reason why monsters didn't become famous, another crucial issue is that Chinese monsters were all recruited. In Chinese culture, a monster's ultimate fate often has two outcomes, either total destruction or being recruited as a god, getting an official position, and becoming a legitimate god. For example, Sun Wukong, originally a monkey demon, but after a series of struggles, he became the victorious fighting Buddha, successfully recruited, and got a position in the heavenly court. The Bull Demon King, although he was initially a monster, but he married Princess Ironfan, and their son, Red Boy, even took Guanyan as his master. Definitely a well-connected insider. Baize, originally a monster in Shanghai Jing, later recognized as a mythical beast, he became a legitimate god and is still a good luck symbol that drives away evil spirits. In contrast, those monsters without enough power or connections, well, they usually meet a fatal end. For example, Bai Jing, who tried to trick Tang Seng into giving up his flesh, was ultimately beaten to death by Sun Wukong's 3 strikes. The spider demon, who tried to seduce Tang Seng, in the end, she was either beaten to death or burned alive. The centipede demon, who was merely a background character in Fengshen Yanyi, had no real fate to speak of. In the end, it was struck by lightning. In Chinese culture, a monster's fate is like a battle. Either it is destroyed in combat, or it is recruited into the heavens to become a god. In other words, in China, monsters are either killed or deified. Only a few manage to leave a lasting legacy. In contrast, Japan's monster system doesn't have such a strict recruitment culture. Japanese monsters are more often seen as beings that oppose the human world. From start to finish, they never got recruited into the heavens like Chinese monsters. Instead, they kept their identity as monsters and eventually formed a complete monster cultural system. 3. The marketing strategy of Japanese monster culture. Why did it become famous? In addition to the issue of monster recruitment, the systematic organization and cultural export of Japanese monster culture is also a key factor causing the gap. Japanese monster culture is not as scattered as China's. It has been organized through artistic works like Hayaki Yajio, Night Parade of 100 Demons, becoming an important part of Japanese culture. Starting in the 20th century, Japanese monster culture spread through various forms, like manga, anime, and movies. For example, Yokai Watch, turning a group of monsters into cute pets, easily winning the hearts of children. Demon Slayer, turning demon culture into a mainstream anime, almost becoming a household name. Spirited Away, making the character No-Face a globally recognized monster representative. These works not only breathed new life into the images of monsters, but also helped spread Japanese monster culture widely. In contrast, although China's monster culture is equally rich, it lacks landmark works like Hayaki, Yajuo. Additionally, the delay in cultural export has prevented Chinese monsters from gaining proper recognition and promotion globally. 4. Being recruited. How Chinese monsters made a comeback in Japan. Chinese monster culture succeeded in Japan not just because Japan borrowed these monsters, but because of the adaptability and uniqueness of Chinese monsters themselves. Chinese monsters come in various types and forms, with each monster carrying rich cultural meanings. This cultural diversity provided a broad space for their recreation in Japanese culture. Let's look at a few examples. The Guoho bird, originally from the ancient Chinese text 本草纲目, it was described as the manifestation of the obsession of a deceased woman. In China, it was a tragic and terrifying monster. However, this image was given new life in Japan's Hayaki Yajo, becoming a mysterious and eerie character. Faithouman. In southern Chinese ghost stories, the Faithouman is a terrifying demon whose head can fly off its body, creating great fear. This image was further shaped in Japan, becoming a classic character in many horror stories and even appearing in modern video games and films. The multifaceted nature of Chinese monsters allowed them to continually be redefined and reshaped in Japanese culture. Although the basic forms of these monsters originated in China, after being processed through Japanese culture, they became more Japanese and were therefore more easily accepted and spread among Japanese audiences. This cultural adaptability is the key to how Chinese monsters managed to make a comeback in Japan. Overall, the reason why Chinese monster culture is not as famous as Japanese monster culture is due to both historical factors and issues with cultural transmission. Fortunately, Chinese monster stories have not disappeared. They are still hidden in the vast sea of ancient books, waiting to be rediscovered. Perhaps in the future, we will see a Hayaki, Yajuo, of Chinese monsters, bringing back those forgotten monsters into the public eye, becoming a part of Chinese culture again. After all, in the 81 challenges, there is not just one Sun Wukong. That's it for today's video. If you enjoyed this content, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support means a lot to me. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.